when they are activated, they interact with the endothelial cells. Pag nag-interact na yung dalawang yan, ang ending, they will produce vasoactive mediators and increase the platelet aggregation. Vasoactive mediators include several leukotrienes and cytokines. Ang ending, you're causing platelet aggregation within the vessels. Remember, vasoconstricted na yung vessels mo, di ba? Tapos, because of the response of the lymphocytes and monocytes, you're activating the platelets, mag-aggregate sila. And then, the vasoactive mediators will further cause constriction of the peripheral vessels. So, lalo niyang ma-aggravate yung microcirculatory hypoperfusion. Makakadagdag siya sa problema mo na local tissue hypoxia. Okay? But another very important thing that's also happening, you are not only losing blood, you are also losing the intravascular fluid. And with that, you are losing electrolytes. May mga movements ng electrolytes na nangyayari during hemorrhage such that sodium and water will start entering the extracellular space or at the skeletal muscles, and you're losing potassium into the extracellular fluid. So, the cornerstone now, if you want to replace the volume with all of these things happening, nag-hemorrhage ka, yes. Nagwawala ang blood, yes. Palitan mo ang blood. But at the same time, kailangan, because you're losing the intravascular fluid, kailangan nire-replace mo din yung fluid. But hindi pwedeng kahit anong fluid lang. We do not give hypertonic fluid, we do not give hypotonic fluid because may corresponding movements, di ba, in the electrolytes with those fluid. Dapat isotonic fluid, isotonic crystalloid fluid ang ibibigay. Okay. So, that is the cornerstone, blood transfusion and crystalloid solution if you want to restore the circulating blood volume. Okay, let's go now to the patient. Knowing all the physiology that's happening when the patient starts bleeding or significant hemorrhage, anong mga makikita natin clinical manifestations? Hypotension, of course. Tachycardia, tachypnea, minention na natin si polycatheter, si urine output, measured, kaya dapat naka-polycatheter. Cool, clammy skin because of the peripheral vasoconstriction. Patient will manifest symptoms like shortness of breath or obtundation or hindi mo na magising, altered mental status na siya. Okay? Those are the usual clinical features when they present to us with significant hemorrhage. This slide, I already mentioned this earlier. The uterus will act as a peripheral organ. When there is decrease in cardiac output, renal blood flow also decreases, uterine blood flow also decreases, and this affects the uteroplacental circulation. So you get uteroplacental insufficiency and fetal distress eventually. The problem with obstetric hemorrhage is that hindi siya katulad ng trauma. For example, nakita mo gunshot wound, knife wound, kitang-kita mo yung bleeding before your very eyes. Sa obstetrics, madalas hindi mo nakikita pero significant na pala yung bleeding. Case in point, you're familiar with ectopic pregnancy, right? Anong manifestation niya? Vaginal spotting, vaginal bleeding, minimal vaginal bleeding, mas madalas vaginal spotting lang. Pero ruptured na pala siya sa loob. And all that blood is already inside the pelvic cavity. Diba? So, hindi mo nakikita vaginally na yung bleeding niya, pero nasa loob pala. Another is abruptio placenta. Diba? Abruptio is when the placenta starts to separate from the uterus while still inside. Diba? Before birth, nag-separate na siya. So, pwede kang may bleeding, partial bleeding, or minimal to moderate bleeding, pero concealed madalas yung significant bleeding niya, nasa loob na pala. So that's the problem with estimation of blood loss in obstetric hemorrhage. Nagiging medyo visible lang ang bleeding when it's postpartum hemorrhage kasi nakikita mo talaga maagos dun sa vagina yung blood. Most of the time, it's concealed hemorrhage. That is why, I mentioned this earlier, urine output is one of the vital signs that we monitor when there's obstetric hemorrhage and when we are restoring the circulating blood volume already. Take note that the initial hemoglobin and hematocrit may not actually be representative of the blood loss that's really going on. Kasi, reflective lang siya of that time of the hemoglobin hematocrit at the time that you got the specimen. Pero with ongoing blood loss, dire-diretso yung bleeding mo, so malamang hindi na nagre-reflect doon sa initial hemoglobin mo yung actual hemoglobin that's remaining. Okay, now, so we go now to the immediate management and resuscitation. I think this is very important, especially when you are, hindi muna kayo nag-residency, you find yourselves, ang tawag doon, moonlighting. You find yourselves moonlighting and you get patients in the emergency room, for example. Take note that this graphic shows several steps, pero may continuous arrow. What does this mean? Ibig sabihin, you need to be doing these steps simultaneously. Hindi siya step 1, then step 2, then step 3, hindi. Dapat sabay-sabay, simultaneous mo siyang ginagawa. And it begins with oxygenation. Anong ibig sabihin ng oxygenation? Siyempre kasi, you're losing the oxygen carrying capacity with blood loss, right? So you need to replace the oxygen. So, mag-oxygenate ka. At hindi lang yung nasal cannula or nasal bronchs ang gagamitin, ha? Kasi the nasal cannula will only give you up to 4 liters per minute of oxygen. Ang kailangan natin at least 10 LPM. So, oxygen mask. Pero kung halimbawa wala talagang mahagilap si nurse ng oxygen mask, sige na nga, pwede na yung nasal bronchs. But ang hihingin nyo, the oxygen mask. Okay? So, oxygen mask agad. In cases of postpartum hemorrhage, most of the time naka-oxygen na yan. During delivery or intra-op, most of the time naka-oxygen na yan. So, and most of the time, nakikita na natin yung oxygen saturation nila dun sa monitor. If, for example, so, minomonitor natin yung oxygen saturation. If, for example, naka-oxygen mask na, nakikita mo nagda-drop pa rin si oxygen saturation, then the anesthesiologist may consider intubation. Okay? Next, and very important, restoration of the circulating volume. Again, not just the blood, but also the fluid. So the first thing that you do, habang naghahagilap ka ng oxygen, kailangan meron ng naghahanap ng, naglalagay ng IV access. You need to insert 2 IV access. Large bore IV access. Anong ibig sabihin, Doc, ng large bore? Nakakita na kayo ng Zestostro. Ganun siya. Dapat, yun ay almost 18 gauge needle, yung green. Ganun dapat siya para mabilis yung flow across the IV access. At dalawa nun. Yung isa, bakit dalawa? Yung isa for the fluids, yung isa for the blood. Okay. 20, 22, 24 ang bagal niyan. Pangbata ang 24 butterfly. So 20, 18 or 20 lang. Ang problem is, di ba nga, wala ka ng blood volume, you're losing blood, you're losing fluids, so most of the time, collapse na ang blood vessels nila, di ba? So minsan, mahirap talaga silang lagyan ng swero. Pero you need to, so that you can have rapid IV access. And, I mentioned this already earlier, the cornerstone is blood transfusion and infusion of crystalloid solution. Because the crystalloid solution will contain also the electrolytes. Ang kailangan mo, yan yung examples ng kailangan mo, isotonic solution, isotonic crystalloid solution, normal saline solution or lactated Ringer solution. The electrolyte will rapidly equilibrate into the extravascular space. Meron din, there's such a thing as colloid solutions. Usually, mga ANES ang nagbibigay ng colloid solution. Example, albumin, dextran, yan. Pag inisip niyo yung colloid, anong naisip niyo? Oncotic pressure, right? So, essentially, the role of the colloid will be, habang nasa intravascular space siya, it will draw water into that, diba? It will attract the water to draw it into the intravascular space. So, there is some debate whether colloid will actually help with massive hemorrhage. Minsan kasi, well, madalas, mas mahal siya kaysa sa crystalloid. But if it's available and life-saving, so pwede din ibigay si colloid solution. Pero pag best answer, pag choose the best answer, crystalloid ang sagot. Okay. Blood replacement, there's no threshold hemoglobin kung kailan dapat ka nang mag-transfuse. But by intuition, we transfuse blood when there is ongoing acute bleeding, regardless of the initial baseline. At obvious na heavy, yung profuse yung bleeding niya, you prepare blood already. In the box, it says, you administer blood when there is ongoing acute bleeding and your hematocrit is less than 25 or your hemoglobin is less than 8 grams per deciliter, and if you're contemplating surgery and or acute operative blood loss. There's also several paragraphs, several sections about blood component products in your Williams. I will not discuss it anymore. I summarize it in this table for you. Yung use ng whole blood, actually ang whole blood banks do not store whole blood anymore. Blood component products ang meron ang blood bank, and packed RBC yung mainstay because it will replace the oxygen carrying capacity. One bag will increase your hemoglobin by 10 grams per deciliter or the hematocrit by 3%. So, it will tell you, rough estimate yon. So, it will tell you, for example, nasa 70 ang hemoglobin na baseline. At least 3 units of bag ang i-prepare mo. Ganun. Next, fresh frozen plasma. This contains colloid and fibrinogen but no platelets. It's given when there is documented coagulopathy. Also cryoprecipitate, it also contains fibrinogen, and this time it has clotting factors, but again, no platelets. Ang platelets ay nasa platelet concentrate lang. One bag of platelet concentrate will contains 5,000 microliters of platelet. Okay? So, these 3 things, fresh frozen plasma, cryoprecipitate, and platelets, usually yan, binibigay siya when there is coagulopathy. We'll talk about that coagulopathy later. So let's skip this part. You're expected to read up on those blood component products. Okay, let's go to the next steps in the management, which includes drug therapy and the evaluation to the response to your initial management. And most importantly, while you're doing all the 4 steps, you need to be doing the 5th step also. Walang kwenta ang stabilization ninyo, hindi mo masastabilize, hindi mo mahahabol yan until such time that you're able to identify the cause of the bleeding and address the cause of the bleeding. So, with drug therapy, usually this is given in the critical care setting, mga ICU setting, usually critical care med or critical care ANES na nagbibigay nito. Suffice it to say that this includes giving inotropes and vasopressors because you want to Ayun, should be considered only when volume replacement is complete and you've already arrested the hemorrhage and continuous pa din yung hypotension. So, nasa critical care setting na yan. Okay. Now, before I go to coagulopathy, I want to, dito muna tayo sa complications of blood transfusion. Bacterial contamination, viral transmission, these are rare nowadays with modern blood banks. If ever they do happen, ang most likely culprit ay platelet concentrate kasi siya yung pwedeng store sa room temp. Pero very rare naman siya. Yung transfusion reaction, ito yung medyo common, the transfusion reaction. And this is the reason why kayo as medical students will be asked by your residents to monitor closely patients in the wards who are undergoing blood transfusion. Anong mga titignan niyo sa patient? Siyempre, you look for fever, you look for tachycardia, tachypnea, you look for hypotension. So makikita niyo yan, i-order ng resident, monitor vital signs Q15 for the first hour. Then Q30 or ganyan for the next 2 hours while on blood transfusion. Alam niyo ibig sabihin ng Q15? Every 15 minutes. Ganyan. So, paki-monitor please accordingly. Hindi pwedeng QT. Alam niyo yung QT? QT-ngin. Tinignan lang may vital signs na. Hindi pwedeng ganon ha. So, kailangan please monitor them because kayo yung una makaka-recognize if there is transfusion reaction. And you want to recognize that early because you want to prevent acute lung injury, yung most severe type of or form of blood transfusion reaction. Okay. So I'll go now to coagulopathy. In obstetric hemorrhage, there are 2 types of coagulopathy that can happen. There is one, delusional, and the other is consumptive. Ang ending nila, pareho lang. Ang manifestation nila at ang ending nila, pareho lang. It's just that different lang yung cause nila. Delusional coagulopathy happens when the volume, the intravascular volume is diluted. Kasi madami ka ng tinransfuse. So essentially, nadidilute mo lang yung platelet and clotting factors kasi ang dami mo nang nilalagay. So that's delusional. Pero with consumptive coagulopathy, there is one event or inciting factor that triggers the cascade. Not the transfusion, not the massive transfusion, but an inciting factor that activates the coagulation cascade. Okay? So dito muna, sa delusional coagulopathy, this happens when you're transfusing 4 or 5 or more units of blood already. Kaya in hospitals, in major hospitals, we have what we call massive transfusion protocol. In the other hospital where I come from, we call it Code Omega. I'm not sure here kung anong tawag. We call it Code Omega. Pagka inactivate na yung Code Omega, meron siyang mga clinical pathway na kasama. And kasama ito, you need to monitor the platelet count, clotting studies, plasma fibrinogen, D-dimer as well, because we want to determine kung nagko-coagulopathy na siya. And we need to replace the platelets with fresh frozen plasma and cryoprecipitate. Okay. That the other cause of coagulopathy is consumptive coagulopathy. As I said, ang difference niya is sa cause of the inciting factor of the coagulopathy. The most common cause, ayun yung mga obstetric inciting factor. There's abruptio, amniotic fluid embolism, etc., etc. The most common is abruptio placenta. This will trigger it will release tissue factor from the subendothelial tissue, which in turn will result in activation of the coagulation. So ang ending, There will be consumption of all coagulation factors as well as microvascular coagulation and fibrin deposition. Again, the other causes of TIC, emphasizing that abruptio placenta is the most common cause, secondary to release of thromboplastin. This is how we diagnose laboratory diagnosis of coagulopathy. But before the laboratory diagnosis, there are clinical manifestations that will alert us na posibleng meron na siyang non-overt or non-overt TIC. Ano yun? For example, the urine output. Urine output, it's not only the volume of urine that we are monitoring. We are also monitoring, we also need to monitor the character of the urine. For example, pink-colored urine. Anong ibig sabihin niya? What does it tell us? Inadequate pa yung fluid mo. So you need to resuscitate some more. You need to give intravenous fluid some more. Kung bloody yung urine output, it will tell us na baka may hemolysis na. Aside from hemolysis, baka meron ka ding trauma or injury to the bladder. What else? Yung area ng blood ng BP cuff, pwedeng magkaroon ng hematoma, mga PTK. Also, yung part where you extract the blood, pwedeng maghematoma din yun. And yung most common sa mga surgeons, intraoperatively, kada bite, may oozing ng blood. We call that oozers. Kada bite mo, ilaligate mo yung isang vessel, pag bite mo may oozing, tapos hindi siya nagre-respond sa pressure, hindi nawawala. So those are some signs na possible na merong may DIC na going on. And this is diagnosed with laboratory parameters consisting of at least 3 of the following. You can have prolonged proton time, decreased platelet, decreased fibrinogen level, and increased FDPs. D-dimer, pagka narinig niyo yung D-dimer, that's an example of a fibrin degradation product. Expected to be elevated when there is coagulopathy. There's also a DIC scoring system. This is most commonly used for non-pregnant, pero it can serve as a guide to identify pregnant women with consumptive coagulopathy. It essentially consists of the following, yung mga sinabi kong coagulation tests earlier, plus the presence of a known underlying disorder associated with DIC, yung list natin kanina. So, a score of 5 or more is compatible with overt DIC, and less than 5 is suggestive of non-overt DIC. The management is essentially, you have to remove the inciting source of coagulopathy. So kung abruptio placenta yan, kailangan mong i-deliver. And vigorous restoration and maintenance of the circulation so that you can treat hypovolemia and replace the lost procoagulants, the clotting factor, and the platelet. Next. That's the first part of the lecture. Nakukuha so far, the immediate management. Sige nga, isa-isa, meron pa pala tayong case discussion. So mamaya i-review natin. Now we go to the surgical management of hemorrhage. Most of these things, kasi yung lecture nyo on postpartum hemorrhage mostly will be medical management. So ito, mostly surgical management of the obstetrical hemorrhage. I want to begin with uterine compression sutures. Uterine compression sutures, ang most common term sa kanya is B-hinge after the person who published yung mga first literature about it. This is used mainly for uterine anatomy. Ang ang mechanism niya is to compress the anterior and posterior uterine walls together by putting sutures across the fundus na parang braces or suspenders. Tapos later on, the hysterotomy incision is repaired in the usual fashion after you do the Billinge technique. I will show you an actual video so that you can, mahirap kasi mag-visualize, di ba? Kung sinasabi lang natin o binabasa nila. So this is one video. This is the uterus after a CS. So makikita niyo dito, the uterine incision. Ilabas na yung baby. Notice, the uterus, that's a bulgy uterus. Ang lambot, di ba? So what they're doing is, ayun na, naglagay na nila yung anterior, suture sa anterior wall. They're putting the suture on the posterior wall. Now, kapag contracted ang uterus, kita nyo kasi parang may mga wrinkles, madaming wrinkles yung uterus. So they're putting one brace. Ito na yung sa right side. So to orient, right yun ng patient, di ba? Ito yung left niya. You can see the round ligaments here. Round ligament. Fallopian tube. Fallopian tube. Ganyan talaga yung sura ng field kapag madugo. This is a crucial part. Pag hinihigit na yung suture, the assistant is also helping compress the uterus. Kasi yung mechanical act of doing the compression, anterior and posterior, also compressing the open sinuses, the open veins, open arteries, compress mo siya. So at this point, itatali na. Itatali na nila, pero at the same time, nagko-compress pa din si assistant. So, titingnan ngayon if magko-contract na yung uterus. This is a uterine preserving surgery. In cases where primigravid or still desirous of pregnancy or bata pa, ayaw mong mag-hysterectomy, you want to preserve the uterus, so you resort to this conservative or uterine preserving surgery, compression suture. So they will observe whether the uterus starts to contract with the compression suture. If the uterus contracts, and sasarado na nila yung cesarean incision kanina, tapos sasarado na nila yung abdomen. Ibig sabihin, nag-respond na siya doon sa conservative surgery. Doon pa rin, iiwanan pa rin si uterus doon, walang mangyayari. Later on, kung hindi correct yung technique, there may be uterine wall defects or uterine cavity adhesions later on. Pero most of the time, that's the least of your worries. Ang worry mo is to preserve the uterus and isalba yung patient. Okay? So that's for uterine compression suture. Next is uterine artery ligation. There are two arteries that we can ligate. One is, I'll show you in the next slide. Okay, there are two arteries that we can ligate. One is the internal iliac artery and the other is, this is the internal iliac. Sige nga, natin? Review, anatomy. Ano ang origin ng review, galing tayo sa aorta. The aorta will branch off to give right and left. What's this? Common iliac. Common iliac will branch off to give external and internal iliac. Saan manggagaling ngayon ang uterine artery? External or internal iliac? Wala na kasi dito. Internal iliac. Manggagaling ang uterus. uterine artery. So, may dalawang artery na pwedeng i-ligate. Pwede kang mag-ligate sa internal iliac artery, kasi nga di ba ang uterine artery, branch niya, or diretso ka sa uterine artery ligation. Ang problem with internal iliac artery, ay vein pala to. Kunyari artery yan. Ang problem with the internal iliac artery ligation, nasa ano siya, nasa likod siya ng pelvic side wall. So, ida-dissect pa siya para makita mo yung internal iliacs. So, medyo matagal. Kaya, favorite namin, most commonly, is the uterine artery. Bakit? Kasi ang uterine artery, nandun lang sa dalawang side ng uterus. So, we look at, ayan, 5 cm distal to the pwede siyang unilateral or bilateral lang near the cesarean scar, cesarean incision. We identify that and then we ligate the uterine artery. So, pwede siya either the uterine artery or the internal iliac artery. There's also angiographic embolization. Ang sabi sa books, pwede siyang gamitin for refractory postpartum hemorrhage. What happens with angiographic embolization? We usually do this now for placenta acquita. Na-mention ba ito kanina? It's for placenta acquita spectrum disorders, yung mga antenatally diagnosed. So there's a protocol wherein kung antenatally diagnosed siya, we want to be ready. So ang ginagawa, doon muna siya sa interventional radiologist, naglalagay ng catheter hanggang sa through the femoral artery up to the internal iliac. Lalagyan siya ng catheter. Tapos akyat sa amin, pupunta sa OR, we do the cesarean section. Hindi pa nag-ano yun, hindi pa naglalagay ng embolization yun. Naka-ready lang siya doon. Tapos gagawin namin yung cesarean section. And then, once the baby is delivered, the interventional radiologist comes in. That's what he does. And then, in that way, nakokontrol yung bleeding. Hindi nagkakaroon ng massive hemorrhage because placenta acquita can lead to torrential bleeding, di ba? So, and then we proceed with, so nandun na yung angiographic embolization, and then we proceed with the hysterectomy. So, wala kang bleeding, or minimal lang yung bleeding mo. That is in cases when antenatally diagnosed. Ibig sabihin, prepared lahat kasi na-diagnose nyo earlier yung placenta acquita spectrum. Ibang usapan kung hindi kayo prepared and hindi antenatally diagnosed. Next, aortic compression. This is a life-saving but temporary measure lang siya. But what it does is to shut off the pelvic blood flow by pressing on the abdominal aorta against the spine. So kung eto si uterus, may atony na uterus, this is the aorta, press mo lang siya while at the same time checking for the pulsating femoral artery. Bakit mo siya kailangang i-check? Because you want to see if enough yung pressure na ina-apply mo. Because essentially, what you're doing is decreasing the perfusion pressure to the blood vessels, to the distal blood vessels, so that you can buy time while in transit, while you're preparing for other maneuvers. I'll show you, it's pretty simple. Akala mo simple lang siya, pero it can be life-saving. And I want to show you this to give you a better idea. See that? That's hemorrhage. Kita parang tripo, di ba? Baby, delivering the baby, but look at the bleeding. Look. See? See that guy riding the the stretcher, he's applying the external aortic compression. Akala mo, ano yung nagawa niya doon? Akala mo ganun lang. Pero, by showing you the illustration earlier, now you have an idea and an appreciation of what that actually does to the patient. While in transit, kasi usually ER ang pasok niya, di ba? While in transit, papuntang OR, kinocompress mo na yung blood. That can be life-saving for the mother. Look at that, while the angiographic embolization is being ready, andun pa rin. Diba? Andun pa rin siya. This is external. This can also be done internally. Ibig sabihin, open na ang mattress, open na ang abdomen during laparotomy, during cesarean section, open ang abdomen. What is this? Habang nagre-resuscitate, nakakompress siya. See? So, I was saying, pwede siyang gawin internally. Hawiin mo lang. Ito yung angiographic embolization. They're putting the catheter.
Gawin ko nga dyan.
Huwag yung gagawin yan. Kasi masakit. Hindi nyo kakayanin. Get a stool. Or ride the stretcher or dun sa mismong bed. Para adequate yung pressure. Tapos papalitan. Papalitan nyo naman yung naka-compress doon. Ensure your elbow is extended with a 90-degree angle. There. Tapos, tatakbo na. Papuntang OR. Using the weight of your trunk.
Sakit.
Basic level, yung mga nasa ginaganan. Knee aortic compression is an option if you are alone or if the compression period will be prolonged. Okay. Relieve the person compressing the aorta after a few minutes kasi nga masakit siya sa katawan. Afterwards, parang kang pinugbog. Okay? So I hope you get an appreciation of that maneuver that can be life-saving when you're outside. Okay. From that, eto lang, mas simple naman. Pelvic packing naman. Medyo high pressure, high stress. Eto naman, pelvic packing lang. For when you want to consider termination of the operation, pack mo na lang siya. Several rolls of wasp, but just make sure na nabilang nyo kung ilan yun, ha? And then it may be left for 48 to 72 hours if the patient is stable and bleeding appears to have stopped. Sa pelvic, pwede din siya sa vaginal. For example, laceration. Pag vaginal laceration or cervical laceration kasi very friable na yung mga tissues. Minsan pag bite mo, biglang paghatak mo kasama na yung cervical tissue or yung vaginal tissue. Pagka mga ganon, we just look for if there is active bleeding. If there's no active bleeding, we just pack. So bilangin minsan hanggang 10, hanggang 20 na pack yung nilalagay namin. Sometimes we put vaselinized OS para mas madali siyang tanggalin. Nilalagyan siya ng KY lang, ng KY jelly, para mas madali siyang tanggalin. Kasi pag hindi, pwedeng friable pa yung tissue. Pag pull out mo, baka magka-injure. Ma-injure mo din yung mga friable tissues. So, yeah. It can be introduced transabdominally in this case or pwede din siya sa transvaginally. Next, we go to management of uterine inversion. The time 10:50. Give me 5 minutes. Okay, uterine inversion is when, it usually happens when you're delivering the placenta and you do not wait for the signs of placental separation. Ano yung signs of placental separation? Ay, tayo din pala yung next, ano? So, pwede natin i-continue to. Okay. So, ano yung signs of placental separation? Sige nga. Sudden gush of blood, cord lengthens, uterus rises up in the abdomen. So, basahin nyo. There's a reason why you need to look or wait for the signs of placental separation. Because if hindi pa nagsiseparate, inadvertently, paghatak mo, baka sumama ang uterine fundus. Nangyari sa amin to when I was an intern in East Avenue. From duty, at umuwi, my co-intern and I, deliver daw, sabi ng resident, deliver the placenta. Kala mo, simpleng delivery of the placenta, hatak. Pero parang hindi nagse-separate. Iba yung itsura ng myometrium ng uterus sa placenta. You have to be able to recognize the difference. Parang glistening, di ba may membrane si placenta? Parang glistening, merong glistening thing doon na makikita kayo. Versus yung uterine wall, medyo rough, the usual kung ano yung nakita nyo doon. So, bakit hindi nagsiseparate? Hanggang sa kasama na ng placenta, nag-invert yung uterine fundus. So, in cases like those, na hindi pa nag-separate yung placenta from the uterus, what we can do is, we can give uterine relaxant so that we can reposition, ibabalik yung uterus papunta sa loob. And then we keep the hand inside, and then we ask the ANES to run oxytocin, uterotonics, para mag-contract habang nasa loob yung kamay. Pag nag-contract na, saka mo siya tatanggalin. And then you attempt to remove the placenta. If, for example, natanggal na yung placenta pero may uterine inversion, pretty much the same thing. There. Pretty much the same thing. We hold the uterus, so ganun yung itsura niya na ng-uterine inversion. As the uterus is, you hold the uterus, the anterior and posterior wall of the uterus, and push it inside. And then, the examining hand is used to ensure that the fundus is fully expanded into its normal position before you remove. Kailangan contracted muna siya before you remove the hand. What happens when ayaw pa rin talaga? Hindi mo ma-reposition with that maneuver. Then we can do in the unusual circumstances in which manual repositioning is not successful, you need to open the uterus and do laparotomy. With laparotomy, bubuksan mo yung mattress and then you can either do the Huntington procedure or Huntington meaning may progressive upward traction ka habang merong nagpupush ng uterus up, pataas to bring back the uterus into its normal position. Or kung medyo masikip, pwedeng mag-Haldane procedure. I'll show you another video so that you can appreciate what happens. This is a video of acute inversion of the uterus. An abdominal vaginal approach was taken in this case. Kasi hindi na nila ma-reduce, manually reposition yung through the vaginal route. Orient you. So, naka-open ang mattress. The uterine fundus is there, nasa loob. This is the fallopian tube. The other fallopian tube, that's an ovary. That's the other ovary. Yes? Na-appreciate nyo? So, someone, nasa baba, someone is pushing that uterus, the fundus of the uterus, going up, going upwards. They are not using the babka to pull. What they're relying on is that vaginal hand pushing the uterus inside. You know, di ba? Nakita nyo? Malapit na siya. There. Pero ayaw pa. So relax, at this time, relax yung uterus so that you can reposition. Kita niyo yung hand na to, nagigigil na siya. Parang gusto na niyang haplutin yung uterus. Wag, baka ma-injure. Pero parang atat na siya. Konti na lang. Nagigil na siya. There. There. Okay? Take note, it's still boggy. Hindi pa siya contracted. Wala pa yung mga wrinkles. So at this point, dapat, what's that? At this point, dapat magbibigay na ng uterotonic to make that uterus contract para hindi na siya mag-invert ulit. Okay? So, wala na akong video for this part. Bakri balloon is available in the Philippines already. This is not the same as polycatheter. Polycatheter kasi, maliit lang yun. 3 ml, 5 ml lang ang laman niya. Ito, hanggang 500 yata, 1 liter ang pwede mong mailagay sa kanya. Medyo mahal nga lang. So, you reposition that bakri balloon inside the uterus hanggang sa dulo, hindi lang sa may lower uterine segment. Dapat abot siya sa mid to the fundus, and then we infuse fluid. Essentially, ganun din ang ginagawa niya to compress all the sinuses inside the uterus to avert the hemorrhage. There, I think that's my last slide. So now you know, now I hope you are able to appreciate, una muna, recognition is the key. Recognize that there is already hemorrhage so that you can start the series of steps that will help you resuscitate and manage that hemorrhage. So you can save both the mother and her baby. Okay? Alright.